President of CASE, Chairman of the Board, Ambassador Derek Hammond, other members of the faculty of CASE, members of the board representing our chairman, Marie Webb of NYS, most notably Mr. Lorenzo Ellis, a teacher himself, Mr. Omar Newell, hard-working Director of Community Services at the NYS and other NYS members of staff, some a little heavier than others since the last time I saw them. Members from the Ministry of Youth and Culture, students, members of the media, members who have come to witness such a great program that I'm so pleased to be here to launch today. A very pleasant good morning to you all. I must admit that I don't get a chance to come to this side of the island very often because as Member of Parliament for a constituency in St. Anne, I spend a lot of time in the center of the country, but I'm always reminded about how beautiful Portland is every time I hit the boundaries and how lush and gorgeous everything that comes out of Portland is, especially the food. Not to say that St. Anne is not the best parish, however. I'm here to speak to you a little bit on a couple of things. And every time I see or you see keynote address, I think you expect a pedantic speech. And the truth is, I'm not here to speak you. I'm here to speak with you. Because there are some facts of life that I think you should understand, not only as students, but as persons who are now going to go into the work world after this, so that you not only start preparing yourself from here, so that when you reach out there, your realities are very, very much tied to your understanding of living in a global environment. What we're witnessing today in the world is the largest population of young people the world has ever seen. Between the ages of 15 to 24, we have about 1.2 billion young people in the world. And what you realize, and what I've realized, is that every year 121 million young people turn 16 and they enter the job market. What persons don't tie it to is the fact that about 75 million of those persons and 75 million young people are unemployed. That's about 12.6% of the population. Jamaica is no different because when you look at the unemployment statistics among youth, we're trending at about 37%. And we live in a world today where, unlike before where Jamaica had certain protections, we don't have the same kinds of protections in terms of trade, in terms of our products and the like. And so we are competing, as small as we are, with every other major country in the world. And that's what the world looks like today. So as a Minister of Youth, I am consistently reminded that for us to get to the next generation of productivity, we have to understand and shape policy that is commensurate with the global thinking of the world, the global mindset of how producers operate, and certainly the movement of capital. And those sound like very complicated issues, but we deal with them in everyday life right here in our own country. So when you look at, for instance, why things are going up, you realize that over time, as a population, we have become accustomed to consuming import items. And we've had to be able to buy those import items. In the same way that young people say, well, why not now one? And the reason why they say that, or some of you say, is because you're making a comparison between what you think should happen because you see it happening in other countries in real time. And so the communication platforms as well have also made it virtually instant for you to compare your lives and contrast your lives with people who are abroad. And sometimes we don't look beyond or beneath the context. and we don't go a little deeper and a little further to realize that some of those same countries that we're viewing are actually having more challenges than Jamaica itself. But we are in the most profound and the best chances of any time in our history in this country. And the reason why we're there is because we have the greatest opportunity to become world producers, sitting at a global table and taking decisions versus becoming world consumers, marginalized in a world without boundaries. And what do I mean by that? I know a lot of you hear from time to time the government saying, we're going for growth and we're going for economic growth. And a lot of you hear about the IMF. And many of you, when I listen to some of the polls coming out on the television, say that you don't understand. And you don't understand because the dots are not being connected sufficiently. So while we speak about economic growth at a macro level, and those are the big issues, we're not connecting the dots at the micro level to really show you how it really is connected. And so that's what I'm going to do for you today. And then to take you into why we're doing programs like what we're now doing under the Ministry of Youth. Jamaica has a distinct advantage, more so than any other country. The distinct advantages that we have is that we have an enviable culture that is ranked first class anywhere else in the world. We have some of the best products coming out of agriculture. We are geographically located now so that ships coming from China going to South America, and China being the largest manufacturing country essentially in quotes in the world, going to South America and other places really have to pass Jamaica. And we also are equipped because we have, at the tertiary level, some of the most trained individuals who speak English. And so what does that hold for the country? Well, it holds several opportunities. Like Germany, who now creates all the little pieces of equipment to supply to China for their manufacturing equipment and have become world leaders in that area. China, who produces most of the manufactured goods. India in terms of intellectual services, and I could go on. Countries in the world today have identified that you need to beat the world in an area, in a niche market, so that you can survive. Jamaica has decided, and we have decided as a government, that we're going to beat the area in those 4 areas, and beat the world in those 4 areas. In agriculture, in logistics, in ICT, and in cultural and creative industries, as well as some other things. So let's zone in on agriculture a little bit. Because when we shape policy at the Ministry of Youth and Culture, I don't shape policy in a vacuum. I don't get up and say, well, young people need jobs. Yes, they need jobs, but I shape policy in the direction that I think the country would best be served in that area. So this year, we were fortunate because we lobbied that the Ministry of Finance did not cut the budget for the National Youth Service. If you look at that big book of the estimates of expenditure, when you look at other ministries, it really is perhaps a small amount, but we're using it in a large way. And so this year, we have created 8 new policies that have driven 8 new substantive programs for youth in this country. And we've done it so that we not only impact the summer employment workers that used to be the case, and helping some tertiary students going back to school, but we've put it in place so that we're going to be impacting over 12,000 young people across the country this year directly. And so why have we partnered with CASE? Well, let me go back to what I was saying before about becoming world leaders in agriculture. We have to develop a generation of job creators, and I always say hashtag job creators, because the concept that was 30 years ago when your parents or your grandparents had a job, which was a job for life, that is not necessarily the reality in today's world and certainly today's Jamaica. In order for jobs to be created, what do we need? We need entrepreneurs. And we need people who are not only leaving university to look for jobs, we need people who are going to be leaving university to create jobs. And so we have to give you the best opportunity to do that. We have to give you access to capital. We have to give you access to land if you're going to become a farmer. And we have to give you access to the best support mechanism to become an entrepreneur. So that is why when we looked at the program and we said, well, in using and creating job seekers, that's one thing, but we have to create job creators. And so this Memorandum of Understanding today, which is now paying for 50 students to study agriculture and having it funded not only by the NYS, but certainly your board as a part of their agreement, and then going into looking at the 4-H and helping, is all a part of the plan. Because when I speak to young farmers or even young people who I say to them, look, why don't you become a farmer? And there's a disconnect in young people's minds because they still see farming as water boot with some red dirt and a big cutlass and dirty clothes. Today's farmer is a completely different realm. And if you look, I know a number of you want to become teachers, and a lot of you want to go into the government sector. But I implore you, the reason why we're implementing this program is because for Jamaica to do well, and I'm taking you from the beginning to where we want to get to, is we have to move from becoming a country of samples in terms of agricultural products. We need more people producing so that the world can get the best taste of Jamaica. So that farmers today are not only feeding our country for food security, but farmers today are actually supplying the world and making foreign exchange. You know how the dollar is going to come down? And that's possible. People are doing it now. It is when you earn more foreign exchange than you're spending it. So even when you're talking, and that's the simplest way of saying, that is how we're going to get our whole system balanced. So this program is not by chance.